And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Curtis House joining us from News Busters. Curtis, good to have you back.
Hey, great to be back with you. Good morning.
So let's talk a little bit about Stormy Daniels on Saturday Night Live. What do you make of that?
Oh, man. Well, CNN was still talking about it yesterday, and really just swooning over it. So you can tell it went pretty well for her, at least in the mind of the left, which is who they're looking to please. My joke is, Michael Avenatti was probably jealous that he was not invited to be part of SNL, but, maybe they'll work him in the future because, I don't know. But I just think this whole thing is just, it's just another reason why people don't watch SNL. I watched it and I just didn't find it that amusing. Alec Baldwin's Donald Trump, it's so over the top. I miss Daryl Hammond. That's really what I think about that.
It makes you really wonder when you think about this. Here's a woman that says she's aggrieved, she's been hurt, she's been her name has been run through the press. She wanted to live a quiet life, and yet here she is on Saturday Night Live, and apparently bookings are up for Stormy.
Oh, absolutely, they are. She's been everywhere from Long Island to Baltimore to Florida, and probably everywhere in between. Her bookings have definitely been up in terms of the strip clubs, and that's originally kind of what she does, but to say that, her life has been ruined, or she's been, she's living her life in fear, is just ludicrous. It is absolutely ludicrous for Michael Avenatti to say that, and every time he goes on television, and says that, you can just see, like, the anchors on CNN and MSNBC are like, okay. That couldn't be any further from the truth. If she was truly in fear of Donald Trump coming to get her, I don't think she would be doing what she's doing, with the paparazzi, kind of following her everywhere. They run the same stock footage from when she was in Florida, at a strip club, and it's crazy that, this keeps going on and on and on. But then again, this is the news media that we're dealing with here, and these people will do anything to get rid of this president, and, they try to pull on the Russia thread, and that's not doing so good right now, so they're pulling on this thread and seeing what happens.
Indeed. Curtis House joining us from Newsbusters. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Why is it, like David Ignatius wrote a piece in the Washington Post, I think last week, where he was actually praising Kim Jong-un as the real negotiator of peace? This is a guy that has tortured his people. He's killed people. He's one of the world's deadliest people. And yet, when it comes to comparing him to the president of the United States, he gets the loving treatment, and Trump just kind of lucked into it.
Yeah, we've been seeing this happen pretty much ever since he took office, that, everyone's crazier for Trump. No one is crazy as Donald Trump. Kim Jong-un, you saw that at the Olympic Games, with the North Korean regime and the cheering section and Kim Jong-un's sister, just totally people were enamored with her, and just their presence at the games, and not even mention, their brutality. So this is the news media that they're dealing with. They have such a visceral hatred for Donald Trump. It's just so deranged at this point that they're really willing to convince themselves of really anything at this point, whether it's Kim Jong-un or the Cubans, government, that there is really any alternative that is better than Donald Trump, and there's really anyone out there that can show better leadership than Donald Trump. And I feel like at some point people just see right through that, even people who don't like this president. I think that's really important to underline, that there are people who probably don't even like this president but will concede if you ask them that this president is getting screwed.
Indeed. So let's talk a little bit about all the great things going on that he's not getting credit for here at KIDO Talk Radio. It's amazing. Barack Obama gets cover from the media when he's president, and yet Donald Trump gets, I don't really understand the Trump derangement syndrome, Curtis. We have George Stephanopoulos. He's got Rudy Giuliani on, and for 16 minutes it's on Stormy Daniels, and yet that has nothing to do with the Russians. And then he talks a little bit about Mueller, a little bit about the two judges that said that the special prosecutors overstepped his bounds. And, I mean, this is how the sausage is made?
Right, yeah, you're at a point with Trump derangement syndrome where you kind of have some people, all tied up sitting in a loony bin, like rocking back and forth and saying things out loud to themselves. That's really the point that we're at. Just as a second point to show how crazy people are, Jen Rubin was on one of the MSNBC shows, The Fake Republican, columnist for the Washington Post, and they were talking about the Eric Schneiderman news, the Attorney General from New York, and all the horrible things that the New Yorker found that he had been doing to women. And she completely discounted Schneiderman and made it all about Donald Trump. They basically was asked a question about Schneiderman, and she really just totally ignored that and made the entire thing about Donald Trump and Mueller, and Stormy Daniels, which is just, again, it's just so ludicrous what it does, what this Trump derangement syndrome does to people, and then completely, CNN, I think, was flat-footed yesterday when it got their poll results that a strong majority of the American people see this country on the right track. Usually when you have what's about to be a bad midterm election for a president, the country is on the wrong track, but this country is on the right track, and people are saying that. So it's really an interesting kind of split here. So that's why they keep talking about Stormy Daniels, and they think that's the right thread to pull on, but I think it really hurts their reputation with the American people who, are responding by not watching.
Well, what gets me is that they want to go after Donald Trump, and they just want to attack Sarah Sanders. They want to attack Kellyanne Conway. I mean, and Jake Tapper starts bragging about it. And I'm thinking, is this sport for these guys? What's the deal with them that they've decided to, continue to engage in this stuff? There is no positivity with them continuing this narrative and really just having a verbal smackdown with officials at the White House when the Obama people and the Clinton people really just got a free ride. To me, it exposes their hypocrisy, and maybe they just don't get that the rest of the American public gets it.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. Yeah, Jake Tapper is someone who kind of has a holier-than-thou attitude, but when you criticize him, he's very thin-skinned. But then you have Brian Stelter at CNN as well. You have Chris Cuomo. And there was a New York Times Magazine piece last year about CNN under Jeffrey Zucker, and it basically makes the point that Zucker is in the paints this anecdote of Jake Tapper and Kellyanne Conway throwing down one time last year, and Zucker was in Tapper's ear giving him questions like this is kind of his like it's the Truman Show, and it's just it's crazy that to think that it used to be this way it wasn't the case. It's just this Trump show of people just kind of being totally deranged, and also, again, then it's not surprising when we come out with our studies and we find that, it's 91% negative, on the network evening newscast for this president. People are just upset. People are fed up with that, and they want good news, and they're talking about Stormy Daniels. I mean, how are you able to watch the news with your children in that regard? But these are the same people that defend Bill Clinton back, 20 years ago and undermine the special prosecutor, Ken Starr, at the time. But now questioning Robert Mueller is, un-American.
Well, and finally, Curtis, you bring up a good point. The language that these folks are using on CNN in particular, when we're talking about being family friendly, they certainly aren't.
No, I mean, it's, we found when Donald Trump supposedly said his thing about certain countries, it was said I think it was almost 200 times, in like a small time span that my colleague Tim Graham was able to put together. It's just absolutely stunning. And then when Michelle Wolf had her deal with the White House Correspondents' Dinner, they didn't operate off of a delay. There were a number of F-bombs said at the time. So I think that's just it's really crazy and kind of coarsening of our debate, but they argue, oh, well, the president said it first. That's like playground talk, If somebody said something first, or, oh, this person pushed me down first, or, oh, this person threw a punch first. Really? They want to say that the White House is a bunch of liars or, elementary school, or Bob Corker said it's an adult daycare. I feel like they need to look at themselves in the mirror first. I feel like, as people of faith, as some of them claim to be, I feel like that's who you need to take care of first before you can kind of present a case that, about other people not really having their priorities in order.
Curtis, if people want more information on Newsbusters, what can they do, sir?
Newsbusters.org, newsbusters.org. We've got some great stuff coming up this week, so some good studies. So be glued to that. Very excited about that. And I'm at Curtis Houck on Twitter. So definitely check us out no matter the time of the day.
All right, Curtis. Keep up the great work, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Take care, Kevin.
All right, our great friend Curtis Houck joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Huge show today, by the way. Do want to remind you, coming up, we've got the contenders. Steve Yates, candidate for lieutenant governor, joining us. Dr. Tommy Ahlquist joining us, candidate for governor. Then we're going to talk about the issues that impact you. Plus, Congressman Labrador will join us, taking your phone calls as the governor's race heats up. Do want to remind you, in every race heats up, a week from tonight, we'll be at the Riverside Hotel, once again, giving you election night coverage with our friend Lars Larson. We'll be there to find out who wins and who loses. And I like a lot of people are going, oh, Kevin Miller, I'm so going to be so glad when this election season's over. Well, I'm not. And coming up next, I'll explain why. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Franklin, Indiana cops say they pulled over 46-year-old Barry Ridge driving down a county road drunk on a lawnmower. Police say someone called 911 to say a man drove onto their yard and was mowing their grass. Police say Ridge appeared glassy-eyed and failed a breathalyzer test. This is not his first brush with the law. Cops arrested him just a few weeks ago, tooling around a Kroger parking lot on his lawnmower, drunk. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
Oh, Gary, thank you very much. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Now, look, that's not so bad. Okay, so he gets on his lawnmower, he has a few, and he's going to go mow your lawn intoxicated. That story is so good. I think we have to hear that again coming up. Good morning, Kevin Miller with you here at KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Big news day today. We'll be watching with Glenn and Dave and Sean and Lars throughout the day whether or not the president will tell the Iranians to go pound sand and get out of the Iran nuclear deal. Now, again, we like to tell you what we think. We really love to hear what you have to say at 580-5436. This is the right thing to do. It's time to get out of the Iranian deal. And we'll talk a little bit more about that next. But first, I'm sitting back and I'm hearing people say, man, I can't wait for this primary season to be over. And I've written about it at KIDOTalkRadio.com. And look, it's great having Steve Yates on, Dr. Ahlquist on, Congressman Labrador on, Lieutenant Governor Little on, Senator Idaho Needs No Nini on, right? It is great to have these people on, to have this access. Yes, the negative ads, the ads themselves. Have you ever noticed even the libs, they don't say, hello, I'm a progressive liberal who loves to hug trees and will take away your lands. I almost thought about doing a parody spot, but I don't have half the creativity or fourth of the creativity of our friend Ray Amaya here. But, could you imagine doing an ad for a progressive? Hello, I'm a liberal. I would like to take away all the lands and give them to the BLM because expanding the federal government is good. If elected, just call me Liberal Larry. Liberal Larry will raise your taxes because you're not putting enough goods and coffers into the state coffers, if you will. And once again, down with those mean guy conservatives. I'm liberal Larry. You don't hear that. Everybody's a conservative. Heck, even the libs say they're conservative. But I won't. I will not be cheering for the primary to go away. I think it's good that we're involved. And as I've said many times to the people running for office, thank you. Thank you for investing your time, your efforts, and energy into programs like this, into buying signs for the sign people, into organizing volunteers. It's got to be crazy running for office, going into neighborhoods, knocking on door and saying, "Hi, I'm such and such." You talk about getting out of your comfort zone. That has to be getting out of your comfort zone, right? If you can run for office and, hit the streets and knock on doors, because no one likes to answer their door. Do you like to answer your door? I don't like to answer my door, even if I know someone who's out there. Just let me watch Netflix or what have you, right? Well, that's not how it works. I mean, to run for office, to put it on the line, that takes something. And the press, they don't give you enough credit for that. But we do. So thank you. Thank you for stepping up. Coming up next, Michelle Obama doesn't like President Trump. Uh-oh. What's new about that one? And should the president say, "We'll be seeing you to the Iranian nuclear deal"? More on that in a minute. Our time is 6:20. And Kevin Miller in the morning reminding you we'll be at St. Ignatius School in Meridian on Thursday. We will be there promoting our schools, securing our future thanks to Great Power Learning, CapEd Credit Union, and Team Mazda Subaru. By the way, that school is brand new, less than a year old, so we're looking forward to being there in Meridian, Idaho, courtesy of CapEd Credit Union, Team Mazda Subaru, and Great Power Learning in Meridian. So Michelle Obama, she's back in the news, and she's not excited about the president. Now, you probably have seen the things where she thinks that she would be the parent, and right now we have a child in the White House. But really, is it really becoming of the First Lady, who declared herself America's First Lady of all time, to take shots at the current president of the United States?
What is going on in our heads where we let that happen, So I do wonder, what are young girls dreaming about if we're still there?
Well, let's talk about the age of Harvey Weinstein under the age of Obama, and nothing was done for those young girls. I mean, Harvey Weinstein contributed a lot of money to the Obama presidential effort. Of course, we don't want to talk about that, or Bill Clinton, or Hillary Clinton. The one thing that I always loved about that whole presidential thing is you don't criticize your successor. And pretty much Barack Obama has stayed out of the limelight. Sure, he plays basketball. I hear he's playing games like video games and such when he's not collecting big money. But, I mean, really, is it becoming of the First Lady, the former First Lady, Michelle Obama? To me, it's classless.
In light of this last election, I'm concerned about us as women and how we think about ourselves and about each other.
Right. Unemployment at record lows. There might be peace on the Korean Peninsula. People are excited about their country, and Michelle Obama is blaming women. What is wrong with that picture? At 580-5436. And who would you rather have as First Lady? Melania Trump, who, if you caught her speech last night on the Sean Hannity Show, right here at KIDO Talk Radio, was talking about children and taking care of children, or Michelle Obama, who planted a garden in the White House lawn, right? Think about that. But she's blaming women. They had a poor candidate who cheated, who the press continues to cover up. Think about this. People are saying how unfair it was, and now you have Hillary Clinton apologists coming out. They're saying, "Oh, Hillary, she was a good Hillary. She rigged the Democratic primary process, so old Bernie couldn't in fact win." And Bernie's not exactly Mr. Charisma, right? She rigged that. She tried to rig it where her staff got the questions for the debate beforehand. She outspent Donald Trump. You had the email scandal, the server scandal, and she still lost because she took for granted the Rust Belt states. That's why she lost, not because of this.
What is going on in our heads where we let that happen? You know? So I do wonder, what are young girls dreaming about if we're still there?
There we have it. Maybe dreaming of a better day, or perhaps trying to find that Indiana man who allegedly was intoxicated while driving his lawnmower. I still love that story. Do we have a moment for that? Okay, please bear with me one more time. This story, when you need a laugh, at least you're not this guy.
Franklin, Indiana cops say they pulled over 46-year-old Barry Ridge driving down a county road drunk on a lawnmower. Police say someone called 911 to say a man drove onto their yard and was mowing their grass. Police say Ridge appeared glassy-eyed and failed a breathalyzer test. This is not his first brush with the law. Cops arrested him just a few weeks ago, tooling around a Kroger parking lot on his lawnmower, drunk. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
More on that, plus Steve Yates, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And coming up, we'll talk to our great friend Steve Yates, former Chairman Yates. Hang on for 2 seconds. We'll go to Max in Garden City, who wanted to talk about Michelle Obama. Good morning, sir. Max.
Good morning. I'm here. I had to push a button. I just wanted to mention the fact that Michelle Obama was indeed the wife, the spouse of the United States president for 8 years. But she was never a first lady. We want to look at a first lady, look at people like Eleanor Roosevelt. Look at Nancy Reagan. These are women who used their position to better society, to help us. All Michelle has done from day one is divide society by the sex, by the race. And come on, she gets all dressed up. The papers go gaga over her lovely dress, when in reality she looks like, I don't know, like a cast extra from Planet of the Apes. She's not a beautiful woman, and she doesn't really stick her hand out there to help people. She helps herself, or gives these empty speeches to the All Men Can Burn in Hell Club. Women need to assert themselves. What about men? No, I think she's as much a disgrace to this country as her former husband. How about that liberal, Steve?
All right. Thank you, Max. More on that in a minute. We're joined by candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Steve Yates. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
We're not the folks in Idaho Falls, but, we'll take you the day after you're on with them.
I appreciate beaming into the Treasure Valley. Thank you.
I'm always stalking you.
I'm grateful to have friends and followers, but you, Kevin, you are my leader in the morning.
Yes, we're going to keep that and your holy cow, which we still have. Let's talk about the state of the race. We're a week away. It has been a long slog for you. Are you going to miss putting miles on your odometer?
Well, it's kind of been my life for the last 4 years because it wasn't that far different when I was chairman traveling around the state. I am grateful that coming up in a week from today that votes will begin coming in, culminating this wonderful experience going around the state and doing the things that candidates love to do to build out and execute their campaigns. But it's an exciting time. I mean, it's exciting for me and the people who've supported me in this campaign. But it's an exciting time, I think, for a lot of Idaho voters with big decisions to make on the ballot on governor, Congress, this race for lieutenant governor, just time of choosing about the direction we want to go in our state. So that, I think, is a great, exciting thing to look forward to.
Steve Yates joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. You've kept this campaign positive, and I've had the benefit of knowing you for many, many years. It all began with you and former Congressman J.D. Hayworth, now a big star at Newsmax Television, at the old Ram when you were campaigning for Newt Gingrich. And as many people know that have listened to this program, I've admired what you've done. I've admired your past service. Yet you have some people, and I was talked to a young couple at the Fred Meyer there on Sunday, and they said, well, you know, Steve Yates is a plant. He's this, that, and the other. And I thought to myself, when we have you on, if you'd address some of these concerns or these false flags that have been planted about you.
Well, as you know in life, if you stick your head above water, at some point someone's going to try to take a shot. And I did move to the state in 2011. For some people, that's an issue. For me, it was a matter of my life getting to a place where I could move my children to be closer to their cousins, where I could be closer to my brothers in a part of the country where they'd lived since the early 1990s. To be closer to my parents, who, against our recommendations, not long after we made our decision, Mom decided East Idaho's too cold in the winter and they retired to Florida. But we had an opportunity to kind of get our kids and others closer to family. We wanted to live in an area where my wife Diana's father could come live with us. And unfortunately, he turned for the worse on health and a few months later passed away and wasn't able to come live with us. But these are the circumstances in which, you know, we came to live in the great state of Idaho. I didn't really have a vote over where my mom chose to give birth. I didn't have a choice over the various employers that I had. I was blessed to work for the Department of Defense. They kind of decide where you want to work. I was blessed to work at the Heritage Foundation. Fantastic experience there with great people. It's based in Washington, D.C. You don't really have much of a choice when you're working for them. Then I was extremely fortunate to work in the White House for Vice President Cheney during the first 5 years of the Bush administration. Again, you don't really have a choice of where you live. But when I got to a point in life where I could choose, we looked at things. We looked at places overseas, other parts of the country. And we chose Idaho. And so we can't really get very much around that. I did grow up in a small town, actually I lived in the suburbs of a town of 300 people, and there were cow pastures and cornfields around our home. It was a mile each way to get to a state road. And so there were some of my experiences also working summers on my uncle's dairy farm that are experiences that are replicated in some ways around Idaho, but there's some that it's just that they just can't overcome the fact that if you lived and grew up somewhere else. And then my time as party chairman, I was elected to try to rebuild an organization, to revitalize its finances, but also get people committed to its mission and achieve measurable results. And part of that was emphasizing rules and making sure everyone followed them. And it turns out we have a lot of people who are very, very principled in some ways, but they like the rules applied to their enemies, but not their friends. And I just wanted to make sure that we were all doing the things that we were supposed to. So the legend of different activities in the party kind of grew, but there were a group of people in my part of the state that felt like they should be able to run roughshod over the committee and that it would serve them and that they could treat people as guilty until proven innocent. And I didn't think that was right, and resisting that apparently broke their only rule, which is that a conservative is meant to follow. And I was raised to believe that a conservative is meant to be committed to principle, independent thought, and that our values were what was enduring, and our job was to translate them into policy. So I just had a different approach, and that has earned me some fantastical, farcical, somewhat hurtful campaign ads for my family to observe. But, aside from all of that, we've run a positive campaign. I've criticized negative attacks by my opponents on my opponents. I think it's easy for any of us as a defense mechanism to criticize negative ads aimed at us. I think it's really a test of principle when you step forward and you criticize negative ads against someone that you might actually benefit by. I just think that we need to make the strongest positive case for our public service. This is an enormous time of opportunity in Idaho. We need to focus on the future, not relitigate the past to the maximum extent possible. Just say why our life experience is relevant to doing things that will help our new governor implement and succeed in driving conservative policy forward here in Idaho.
Our great friend Stevie H joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. And again, to address a few of these issues, you've been attacked rather harshly online, false allegations against you, and that should never be tolerated. But, to compare you to Hillary Clinton is kind of strange. And you do have people that are far out there that don't want you to succeed. And I'm thinking to myself, elections should be about experience, should be about platform, should be about what someone has to bring into offer. And, regardless of what we've done in our past, and you have an accomplished resume, as we've talked about before, anybody who's willing to drive the miles that everybody has, I think we should have an objective look. What is the number one issue that you're hearing about from folks on the trail, sir?
Oh, the number one issue I hear about is what are we going to do about workforce development and making sure that there are jobs available for our kids that come out of the education process and help ensure that they don't have crippling debt. So there are a lot of companies that are expanding, some that are bringing manufacturing and other what we used to be called blue-collar skills into the state. And, I'm a son of a mechanic. I have a lot of respect for those that have dirt under the fingernails and make things work. And there's been a lot of questioning about whether our focus on curriculum in the past, whether it's Common Core, which I've been against and remain against, whether these kinds of emphases on curriculum have been missing the boat in terms of the kinds of jobs that are available for kids that come out of high school. And then when it comes to college, it's not necessarily a 4 years and you're done and you're into a career. And for too many kids, and even some that go on to graduate, to medical and other kinds of schools, there are too many kids in Idaho that if they go through these programs, they have so much student debt that they can't afford to stay in Idaho. They've got to go somewhere else to make the wages they can to dig out of that debt. And so two things, aligning their school experience with jobs ready to receive them and making sure they can get through the process without crippling debt. Definitely the biggest issue I hear from parents and just people looking at community development.
Stevie H joining us here. So, win, lose, or draw, we'll have the big primary night. Are you going to be at the Riverside with everybody else?
I will be at the Riverside. I'll be in Boise for a few days leading up to the end of the primary season. We do look forward to coming out on top in this race. We've been blessed with pretty broad base of support in every region of the state. And despite some of the murmurings and rumor that are out there that feed those ads, and I feel bad about people but there's just too much rumor in Idaho politics and politics generally. You'd think that people would have gotten over that after the Trump-Clinton campaign, but we've been really, really fortunate with a lot of strong positives, and we take the challenge seriously, but feeling pretty good going down this stretch.
Well, what I was going to say is we'd love for you to join us for our Unity breakfast before the Unity rally on the 17th. We'll see you that night. We'd love to have you on. Maybe we can get you on before a week from today. But I know you always put your party first, so hopefully we're inviting you to our breakfast at Terry's Cafe before the big Unity rally on Thursday. So
sounds wonderful, Kevin. I look forward to it.
Be careful on the trail, sir.
Will do. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, sir. Our great friend Stevie H joining us. Let's go to Hank in Boise, KIDO Talk Radio. What do you make of that guy?
Well, I think I feel a little more comfortable with the McKeon rather than him. He wasn't consistent in the party fights when he was state chairman. I understand he's under a lot of pressure from Bush, but there were a couple of things that he did was not friendly to conservatives within the party, and so it makes me a little bit reluctant. I'll give him a little bit of a pass because since he was in a difficult position with Bush in there, but I prefer somebody who's absolutely solid Republican, and McGeehan is the only one I see that's consistently conservative.
So you're going with so McGeehan has your vote.
Yes. I also will point out there's an ad.
What about Nonini?
Nonini is when he was in education was not completely consistent. In other words, Nonini on some issues like on right to life has been solid, but on education issues, he when he was in the legislature, he tended to wobble, and that's why I'm not totally enthusiastic about him.
So you're saying Idaho doesn't need Nonini?
I think we could do better.
All right, Hank, you tell it like it is.
Okay.
Our great friend Hank with us. Hang on, Hank. I'm not getting rid of you at KIDO Talk Radio. What else would you like to talk about?
Well, you mentioned that you did a little spoof about liberal Larry.
Yes.
Well, we had liberal Butchie baby who couldn't get enough money in the state coffers to the coffers when it came to the grocery tax. And good buddy, and we have Brad Little, who was advertised by Prosperity Fund. And guess what? Brad, along with his good buddy Butchie baby, did all they could to get the state exchanges in the state. We're the only red state that had the state exchanges. And, of course, the Prosperity Fund is a front for Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and all these other little groups, whose agenda, by the way, is not all that conservative. And also Brad's little thing about not micromanaging education. Oh, so we're going to keep that nice liberal shrine to the Democrat Party and liberal thought and study center.
I take it you won't be voting. I take it you won't be voting for the lieutenant governor.
No way. And you know, basically, people bankrupt themselves with student loans to support basically a liberal cultural cult center called Boise State. And before I leave on this, Brad has been gaining the most in this last month or last week in terms of the polls of the action. I think that basically Tommy Alquist's campaign has kind of stalled in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And the one that's been making the pickup has been Brad. I'll comment a little bit further, extend my remarks from yesterday.
Hank, thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up next, much more on this, what is politically correct and what isn't. A major university decides they want to get rid of their mascot because they find it offensive. We'll tell you about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And Kevin Miller in the morning here as we continue on taking your phone calls about the issues that matter to you. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Coming up, Dr. Tommy Alquist will join us. We'll get his thoughts on the campaign as we wind it down. And what's next? Why, by the way, we are calling for unity within the greater political parties. It's going to be a heavily contested and already has been contested primary. After the primary, a week from today, we're calling on everybody to come together, regardless of your political side, Republicans, Democrats, and unite for a better Idaho. More on that coming up. Fox News next. Kevin Miller.